Clean it up. Well, this will be our intro clip.
Okay.
Oh, look, see, we're crooked. We're leaning to the side.
Cheers anyways.
Cheers anyways. Regardless, let's fix it. Are we straighter now? Is that better?
It looks a little crooked still.
It does still. Now we're tilting this way. Hold on. Let's hold it and just...
Nope, that's pretty good.
That's feeling?
I feel like it's straighter.
Oh, that is straighter. Yeah, yeah. Is that straighter? Is that straight? Are you going to be watching us like this at all? Welcome.
Thank you for having me. So excited.
It is the Tiffany Show. We're here today, Kojiko, Your TV, Ptbo, Lindsay, and of course, my social media channels. If you don't subscribe to Kojiko, I highly recommend.
Tiffany.
I've got a special guest who's done a little cameo before for us.
I did?
Yes. International Women's Day. You jumped right in, actually. Last minute, I needed somebody, and you were like, I got you. Love it. Ashley Webster.
Hi.
Hello.
Thanks for having me. Feels good to be here again.
You've been deeply involved in this community for a long time, but I'd like to get to know you just a little bit better. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself, your likes, your dislikes, your hometown. Were you born and raised here?
Okay, my name's Ashley. So I'm a mom. I have a son that just turned 2. My hometown is Lindsay, Ontario. So just down the road.
Hop, skip, and a jump. We love the Kawarthas.
But I've lived in Ptbo for 6 years now. So I've been here for a while. And I actually just moved into one of the Ashburnham buildings. It's been amazing.
Ooh.
Shout out to them.
Yeah, Ashburnham Realty. They've got some beautiful properties.
Beautiful.
Have you seen the rail yard development in East City?
Yeah, so beautiful.
Gorgeous.
So happy.
They are good business. Shout out to Laura and Paul and Stefan and the crew over there.
Yeah.
So 6 years ago, you relocated.
Yep. And so I wanted to start a little side business. So I started my business, which is still my business. It's called Braidwood Blooms. So if you're looking me up on social media, please do that.
Follow.
It's Braidwood Blooms Ptbo.
Got it.
So it's easy to find Instagram and TikTok. And it used to be flowers. I am garden obsessed. I still am. But the last couple of years, my life has changed a whole bunch. So I changed the business to something that actually is going to make a lot more sense for me.
Wow.
So what I'm doing now is, if you were to follow me, you would find a lot of mental health and positive mindset, manifesting type of content. So just really strengthening the way we think about ourselves, giving our mind the resilience to make better decisions, so we're more likely to get what we want. So what pushed me there was all of my worst fears, I swear to God, happened like within a year of each other.
Oh.
And I really went through my own difficult time.
Yeah.
So after the birth of my son, I was diagnosed with ADHD. So I'm 36. So in boys, the average age of diagnosis is 7.
Right.
In women, 37. And so the conditions present really differently. Girls are almost always missed. It's actually an incredible privilege that I do have a real diagnosis. It just came through this week. I will tell you, it cost me close to $6,000. And people don't realize like how many barriers there are.
Yeah.
If you're a neurodivergent adult, and this is especially true with autism as well, how difficult accessing support can be.
Right.
How much gaslighting you're going to face, because ADHD is largely thought of as, oh, that's hyper little boys, like, so what, you have a hard time sitting still, why are you even talking about it? That's kind of the reaction people get.
Wow. In 2024, that's a reaction?
Well, I think people just don't understand what it is.
Right.
And especially in women, how different it can present and how really debilitating it can be and how difficult it can make your life.
Right.
And so, like, neurodiversity in itself is not a mental health condition. But what happens is, if you live as a neurodivergent person without the appropriate supports, of course, diagnosed or not, you just collect trauma. And it's that trauma and it's that feeling of constantly being misunderstood or being told you're to this or not enough of this, or not taken seriously for simple things. For example, a sensory difference. So for me, if you were to be chewing gum beside me,
Yep.
that is really all anyone would need. If you want to torture me, like that's all you need. I have a physical response to that.
Right.
My body goes into fight or flight immediately.
Ooh.
And I'll actually be in pain for days because everything in my body will be tense. And don't expect any work out of me for the rest of the day because I'll be so focused on how much I hate your guts and like stopping myself from fighting you.
Right.
Because the noise is that distressing.
It's that distressing.
But of course, you grow up, no one else experiences the noise that way. So you just get labeled as dramatic or wanting to make it about you, right?
I
and
see.
then that can have devastating impacts for women, high masking women. Women tend to mask, which is basically we feel ashamed of our what we view as our faults, but are just our differences. And so we hide them and we learn to kind of mimic other people. And that takes a really, really significant toll on your mental health.
Oh, yeah.
And so what happens often is ADHD symptoms are massively, massively impacted by hormones. So enter baby, enter postpartum or menopause, perimenopause, anything like that. And you have women and their lives are completely falling apart. They have no idea why. There are immense barriers to care, immense barriers to medication. Almost no research at all on ADHD in women to this day. It's almost all done on boys.
Wow, I'm tired of hearing
And so there's so many women left without support. Like even things like suicide rates for ADHD women are more than 5 times higher.
Wow.
It's really, really debilitating in a way that's not understood. And there's so many women suffering in silence and suffering alone. And they feel like they're suffering because they're not good enough. And so everything I do now for my work is focused on how I learn to build my self-esteem back up because that's been an issue for me lifelong.
Oh, yeah.
And so I really had to teach myself, like I was in a dark place, and so I had to teach myself sort of step by step how to get out of it. I had to understand it takes a very long time.
Yep. Yeah.
And you're going to have setbacks and you have to go in expecting that you're going to have setbacks and that's okay. And learn not to be so harsh with yourself. And so I wanted to do that. And then also because when my mental health suffered, of course, we stopped taking care of our physical bodies as well. My physical health had suffered. Very long story long that I'm going to shorten up really now. But anyways, I ended up really losing my ability to work. I had a ton of cognitive impairments, a ton of issues that didn't allow me to work in the field that I had got my degree in, that I had worked in my whole life. So it was time to pivot. And so now I make positive mindset notebooks. I raise money for mental health at PRHC. I talk about positive manifesting and mindset in a way that hopefully will help others.
Yeah.
And I just started as a personal trainer in Ptbo, Good Life Voyager, Monaghan Road.
Love that.
And so I'm hoping to really specialize in, working with people where self-esteem and motivation is an issue. Maybe you're scared to go to the gym or you've never ever worked out in your life and the barrier for you is just, how do I learn that habit? How do I get my mind to a place where I'm going to be comfortable there?
Yes.
Because it's often that's the biggest hurdle.
Yes. And I feel like there's definitely some preconceived notions going into a gym of who we're going to encounter there and what it looks like. So it's nice to know that there's real human beings running personal training that also get the mental part to the physical part. And it's just really, really nice to see that come together for you. So when it comes to support systems to kind of get through that and kind of figure out what's going where, who has inspired you or supported you on?
Well, it's obviously my family. My family has been there for me in a way that has been amazing. Aww. I am not someone that likes to ask for help.
Yeah, it's hard.
This situation has made me incredibly vulnerable, and I've had to ask for help, and I hate every second of it. But at the same time, I'm so grateful.
How to do it.
It just reminds you of how loved you are and how much support there is.
And people want to help.
Yes,
they do.
I do want to share, though, a couple of really realistic resources for maybe someone watching at home that's okay, what can I do? I don't have a family, you never know. Yeah. So we don't all have support. That's a reality too, or healthy support. And so I got really into a couple of podcasts. Oh yeah. So I found Mel Robbins to be.
I love Mel Robbins.
She is the best.
Yes. Brene Brown. There's a Dr. Tracy Lynn that I really love too.
Yeah, Mel Robbins. I just found at the time It was the first time I felt like someone was actually validating what I was going through or suggesting strategies that would work for me realistically. Like it was practical for my brain. If you listen to Mel Robbins, you already know this, but she is an ADHD woman as well. And she was super honest about her struggle. So when she talks about money, like she tells you about a time where she was broke and she couldn't pay her bills. And I'm like, okay, I trust you. You can help me because you've done it.
You've been there.
Yes.
Yeah, totally. And she makes things sort of bite-sized too. And you're right, just very realistic. And it doesn't feel like she's selling you something or
scolding you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she feels like your friend.
She
right?
does. She ends it. Your friend Mel. And sometimes if you're feeling alone, you need that.
Right.
Please, I need my friend Mel to talk some sense at
She also talks about that thing where like you're frozen and it's like, when you're in bed in the morning and you just can't get out of bed. And she does this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 rule where she counts down from 5. And by the time she gets 1, she just reacts and gets up and goes. And like, I honestly, ever since I heard her say that, I actually started doing that when it comes to an uncomfortable situation that I'm sort of holding back on. I'm like, okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, let's go.
She was the one actually where I learned even like what manifesting really was.
Really?
And it inspired actually my notebook because the way she explained it was the science behind it.
Right.
But she had a way of, dumbing it down that I have no science background. I understood what she was saying. But it was really it wasn't woo-hoo, like,
it's not that woo-woo. Yeah,
not that there's anything wrong
with that. Good too. No judgments here. I
love crystals and
that's right.
All of that.
Everything is welcome if it feels good.
I'm a fan of the witchy stuff, but she just explained it in a way where I'm like, oh, got it. And then I started trying it. And it's funny enough, when I was at one of my lowest points, one of the nurses in the hospital said to me, she's like, it's not our job to guess what other people think about us. And no one had ever said that to me. And I'm like, if we're going to go around all day making up stories in our heads about what everyone else we're interacting is thinking, like, why not make it a good story? Because we don't know.
We don't know. Why are we assuming it's a bad narrative?
And like even me as a neurodivergent person.
Yep.
So all the time, like if I'm really listening to what you're saying, I'm probably looking at my notebook and scribbling and my face might be blank and I might look really sad.
Right.
And you would probably interpret that as like, what the hell, that's so rude. But for me, I can't listen and pay attention while I make eye contact with you. And so like, it's just an example of how we go through life. Like what you're assuming, you really don't know.
You really don't know.
And we might as well make up our stories in a way that make us feel good.
Yeah.
We're going to have a great day.
True.
Life's our movie. We're the star.
That's right. I love that you bring up the story because actually one of my girlfriends, she's a mindset coach, and she and I have these really great conversations all the time. And she, at some point, like you ask yourself, what story am I telling myself? Mm-hmm. What story am I telling myself about that? And then you'd like take this pause and kind of like peel that back. And it's like, okay, but what am I actually feeling? And kind of like walking yourself through that. And I find when we're creating these narratives for other people as well, and I do it too, sometimes I have to pause and ask myself, well, who told you that, Tiffany?
Yeah.
Who told you that? If nobody told you that, then I can't make any assumptions and I just got to keep on keeping on.
Yes, like if I have a problem with you, it's my responsibility to let you know as a mature adult. It's not your responsibility to walk on eggshells around me and guess.
Yes, sister.
And I say that knowing I'm not perfect. And I'm sure I've made people walk around eggshells on me. Like none of us are perfect, but that's kind of the lesson we need to learn. I'm responsible for my mental health, not yours.
And being aware of how we move too, right? And sometimes kind of going through that journey just really does make us aware. Like I used to make my husband walk on eggshells all the time.
Yes.
I totally know that. And silent treatment. Learned that behavior in my relationships when I was upset at somebody, instead of being a mature adult and saying, that hurt my feelings, this is how I'm feeling. It was like this reaction, punishment. I'm going to punish you for making me feel the way I feel. I'm not going to tell you. I'm just going to punish you and cut you off and be silent and make you wonder what's going on the other side.
Exactly. But your story to yourself is so important too, because you can take accountability and ownership for that.
Yeah.
But that doesn't say anything about you as a person.
That's right.
You know what? You had a moment. You've learned from it, and now you're going to do better next time. And that's the habit, right? We need to stop beating ourselves up. So I know there's this old quote or whatever, shame lives in silence, and I believe that's real. Because when we're ruminating, sometimes if you just tell a friend, they're going to be like, what are you talking about? Right?
Yeah.
But we're all so afraid to say it out loud. And that's what keeps us feeling bad.
Yes.
And if you don't have someone, you can write the thought down, but then you stop. So you just write what happened. You don't say, I failed my test. You just write, I failed my test, and that's it. So what? You don't write, and that means I'm never going to get a job, and that means I'm a loser, and that means I'm stupid. And, you know, you have to stop that thought.
Stop
okay,
that
so
story.
what? You failed a test.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? It's okay if you feel bad.
Yeah.
And what are you going to do next? And so there's ways, even if you don't have, because I really want to acknowledge that it's a privilege to have kind of a village and really healthy, emotional people around
Not
you.
everybody gets it.
And a lot of us don't have it.
No, agree.
And we're all doing the best we can. And even those of us that are, you know, focused on mental health, we're not perfect either.
That's
so
right.
we need to learn to be our own best friend.
Yes. A little grace. The grace that we give our very best friends
Yes.
is the grace that we should give ourselves as well.
Of course.
Absolutely.
It's not like love has a limit, right?
No.
You have so much love to give. So it's not like, you
Keep
know,
it going.
give some to yourself once in a while.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and that's
okay.
like, you know, it's like when we were growing up, they teach us math and trigonometry and science and English, but nobody is teaching us how to have and foster relationships
Yes.
with ourselves and with
ourselves.
others in healthy spaces.
And by the way, why we all have so many problems with other people, it's always because of our relationship with ourselves. It's always.
It's a projection.
Always.
Always. 100% of the time. And I find like if I'm reacting poorly or allowing myself kind of to buy in that narrative and have this poor reaction towards something, when I actually pause and think about the story that I'm telling myself, I really do realize, oh, I don't like that because I see them in me, or I don't like that because that's something that I have done. And it's really interesting, and it takes some time to get there. But I think even just engaging in those conversations with ourselves to start that accountability.
Oh, for sure.
It's a beautiful thing.
One of my Mel Robbins quotes that I loved was, she was just giving this example of walking around the house. Her husband, I think, was just, you know, on the couch watching TV. And she's like, why won't he just do this? Why won't he get up and, you know, clean this and do that and do that? And why is he just laying there? It's a Sunday and he's being lazy. Something along those lines. And then she checked herself and was like, no, I need to ask myself, why do you feel the need to control what he's doing right now?
Exactly.
Him laying on the couch has no bearing on what you're doing right now. Like, why do you as a person feel that need? And so I think it's important, and it's definitely a practice, but to whenever you catch yourself kind of projecting, to ask yourself the question.
Yeah. And forgive yourself, because we're going to slip, right?
Of course.
We're going to slip. It's okay. It's okay.
We're all growing.
We're all growing. We are all growing. There is room for space and grace.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about growing, can you maybe share a moment or a setback that like unexpectedly taught you a lesson?
Yeah, well, November, I found myself unemployed, changing to 50-50 custody of my baby, moving out of my home.
That's a lot of life change.
And being diagnosed with ADHD all at the same time.
Wow.
So when I say, like, I feel like life's funny that way. So it never goes like one thing at a time.
No.
When you can have it at a nice, manageable pace. But so it's been kind of a nightmare, but also really, really beautiful at the same time. So we were talking a little bit about like, why are you becoming a personal trainer now? We've met a few times. I don't think we've ever talked about working out.
No,
once.
right?
Like, yeah. Surprise. But it actually goes back to something I've loved like since a kid. Like I was the girl in high school in gym class, loving it every day, always loved it. And so when I was at a point where my brain was really not going to allow me to work, and I started thinking, okay, well, that doesn't mean you can't work, but we can't go to the same kind of job we've been trying over and over and over. It's not working.
Right.
We need to make
at some point it's that, yeah.
And so where do you want to be now that you kind of have this time on your hands? And I always wanted to be in the gym, and I felt like it just always made me feel better. It was helping my mental health recover. It was making me feel more like myself again. And I started thinking, you know, this is what I'm good at.
Yeah. Yeah. And you enjoy it.
And I enjoy it. And I feel like it's somewhere that I can actually add real value, where I'm going to do well and be able to go home feeling like, hey, I helped someone today because I used my skills for, you know, for something important. We need to be taking care of ourselves as a whole and not looking at ourselves like in pieces. And go outside.
Yes.
We're supposed to be outside. I read something today that said, like,
Barefoot on the
listening
grass.
to birds for 6 minutes will like help your nervous system. Putting your feet on your grass will help your nervous system. It's like, guys, we're supposed to be outside.
That's one of my favorite things when I'm having.
If you do one thing after the show, just go outside for 5 minutes.
Go outside, sit on
Take
the
a
patio.
break.
So incredibly healing.
I mean, we are literally electric systems.
We are made of water.
Earth is electrical energy, and it is quite literally a recharge.
Yes. And drink your water too. A lot of us don't drink enough water. I'm like a 5 bottle a day, like consistency. If I do not have water, I actually feel it mentally. Like I become grouchy.
I aim to be like that. My goal is to cut my caffeine back.
Caffeine back? I don't do caffeine after 12 usually.
Good for you.
Yeah, but I
Crushing
mean,
it.
I'll cram it in there. But then I dilute it with a bunch of water in the afternoon.
Good for you. That's why you've got your glow.
That's right. That's right. So when it comes to moments of doubt or adversity, especially while you're going through these challenges and like you hit this wall and it's like, I can't go on, what or who has been pushing you on? Is it your own internal narrative? Was it somebody else?
I feel like it's almost been like the opposite for me. So there's always been something in me where like, no matter how hard things get or like what I'm going through, there's a little part of me that's just like on fire. Like I do not know when to quit. I never have. I never know when to let go. I never know when enough's enough.
Right.
And I feel like that's part of why I was making decisions that put me in a place where the universe kind of had to step in and be like, you're done.
Yeah.
You're done here.
The universe will intervene.
And we're taking a break.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's been learning how to move on quickly when it's obvious that something's not healthy for me.
Right.
So we're not giving up, right? We're just making an adjustment and going in a different way. And I think changing my mindset has been everything, because when you have a core belief that's negative about yourself, you are going to kind of find yourself in the same lessons over and over, because you're making the same bad decisions over and over.
In the same situation.
Eventually, it's just enough's enough.
Yeah, fair. That's fair.
I think because I made the mistakes over and over and I learned my lessons the hard way, that's what puts me in the perfect position to help.
Yeah, love that.
Because I got real deep into those lessons. Like I left no stone unturned.
No surface level here.
No, I went deep.
Can you maybe share a moment where somebody's kindness or words or support has really impacted your life?
Okay, yes. Well, there's been many times, of course, but I have to say recently I reconnected. I had an old boss, so her name is Jill Quast. She owns, it used to be Happy Days Houseboats, I don't know, on the Trent Center.
Oh, yeah.
I worked there when I was like about 20.
Fun.
Yeah, it was so fun. And so I recently reconnected with her and just like visiting with her, and she's been making space and time for me and helping me like regain my confidence in a way, especially with when you're kind of coming out of a hard time and you're trying to start a business. It's slow, right?
Yes.
It takes time.
It's a build.
And anyone in business, I think, will tell you, you're just clapping for yourself for a while. And you're just putting your content out there and you're acting like you're a celebrity, waiting for it to come in, and it can get lonely, and you can start.
You can be in a silo as an entrepreneur.
Of course.
And I talk to entrepreneurs about this all the time.
Of course.
They do. They get in their little silos.
So she was my first example of a really strong woman in business.
Love that.
So she had to pivot around COVID. They switched to Marina. So they're the Marina at Happy Days now. So they have a super successful Marina on the Trent Center.
Cool.
And so just getting to go spend time with her again. She was like helping me bounce ideas from my notebooks off of her. And then it just so happened, I think some things happening in her life, I was maybe able to help a bit too. And it just started to make me feel more connected again.
Yeah.
Because I think I had isolated myself a lot. Like I think that's a common thing to do when we're not feeling good, is we kind of cage ourselves in.
Fair.
And so she helped ease my transition, I think, to being more back in the world again.
I love that reciprocal space holding.
It's so powerful.
Agreed.
People don't need your advice. They just need you to sit with them and just validate what they're feeling is real and tell them you love them and that they matter.
That's been something,
That's the most powerful thing.
Absolutely. No unsolicited advice. Stop with the advice. Just listen. Sometimes it really is just sitting in silence and crying with your friend.
Yeah.
Or letting them cry and giving them the water, handing them the tissue, giving them a hug. It's just holding that space. Ashley, if little you were here right now, what would you tell that little girl?
I think I would just say you are loved and you are lovable and you will figure it out no matter what happens. You're going to be okay.
I love that. And any significant life lessons or maybe principles that you live by? Like what are your core values?
My core value, I just think that I always try to help. So I feel like if I'm going through something, like, let's give it purpose. I don't really like,
Ooh.
you know, it just feels wasteful if you're going to like survive a bunch of stuff and do nothing with it. Or I feel like there's always a way to get what you want out of life.
Yeah.
Like I've just refused to give up. And so I feel like there's always a way. It's kind of like my resilient mindset that way. I think we were talking, hopefully soon no one will ever call us resilient.
I know, we
again.
did say that earlier. I don't want to be called resilient anymore.
But, you know, you learn a lot and that's how you grow.
You do, stretching into that.
And so even saying like, yeah, I went through hell, but like I grew a lot more than someone that hasn't. I'm a lot smarter now. I work in a job where I feel good now and I didn't before. So what's the bigger risk, staying unhappy forever or making a change?
Being uncomfortable for a little.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Finding those moments too, right?
Yeah. And it's hard. Like taking accountability for yourself is hard.
It's hard.
There's a reason none of us do it.
Yeah.
You know, there's a reason. There's
Doesn't feel
protection.
good. Yeah.
Protection in projecting, and it doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
It's scary. But then you realize it's so powerful, because if you take accountability, that means you're in control, right?
Yeah.
Because when I'm blaming you for my bad day, I'm giving you power over my day.
Yes. Yes.
Right? You have power over my, I've given it away and now I feel weak and, oh, Tiffany ruined my day. That's a weak statement, right?
That's a story we're telling ourselves.
And again, it's something we need to practice. And it's just like working out. Like you don't go once and you're fit, you know, you have to keep practicing.
So when we talk about maybe practicing those things, what does practicing that look like for you?
So it's just every day I try to write in my journal just positive things. And so a really easy one, oh, thank you. So I found like one easy peasy place to start for manifesting, because that's what I like to do. And it's basically training our brain to get what we want. So it's one really easy way to do it, or to start, is just kind of write like, I love my life and the way I live it. I love who I spend my time with and how we spend it. I love what we do together. And then when you start kind of writing that, start to try and get a little more specific and find any place where you can be grateful, because the next thing is you actually have to have the self-worth to believe you're worthy of getting what you want. So I am grateful for my ability to receive love, and I am worthy of love. So that's something you could write down. So it's whatever you want to attract. And so you want to attract it with gratitude and write it down, say it out loud. And it's a practice, so you just keep repeating it.
Ashley, wow, thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Your life experience, some of the tools that you've picked up along the way, the advice that we can support each other and be vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
The more we all share the journeys that we're going through, the more we all realize that we are not alone and there are tools we can pick up along the way, and we deserve to get the things that we want. Ashley Webster, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of The Tiffany Show. Euphoria Wellness Spa, Canoe Cafe, 290 Water Street, beautiful downtown Peterborough. Thank you to all of the staff. Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. Be kind, keep going, and all that good stuff.
Looking to sell your home or cottage? You want to work with someone who knows the market inside and out. Hi, I'm Sarah Evans, born and raised in Ptbo, Ontario. I am very proud to call this great community home. If you are thinking of selling your home, I will find a buyer for you. Contact me today and I can promise to exceed your expectations. 705-768-6278 or visit sarahevans.ca.
Not intended to solicit those currently under contract.